and a lot of the topics of discussion that are impactful to those that also serve our region. One of those topics that we talk about in economic development is business succession. And that's one that's very important because we have a number of businesses that are transitioning, and I think it's important that we educate on what's the proper way of doing that effectively. And so what we did today is we orchestrated a lunch and learn. Again, thanks for attending. And part of that is we want to bring in panelists that are experts in the field, those that are near and dear to the effects of business succession, and people that can actually educate us on how do we move forward, or what are some of those questions that we may have. We get those things answered so we can move forward in an effective manner. So I just want to do a real quick introduction of our panelists today. Kirsten Case-Moeller with SBDC. Kirsten, right there in the middle. Dan Nieland with Iowa State University. Dan is at the end of the table. Duane Johnson with Iowa State, right there in the middle. And then Gary Sterling, who represents us right here at BB University. So round of applause for our panelists for joining us here today. So going to kick us off, I'd like just to have the panelists just do a quick introduction of themselves and maybe a little bit of a background and their experience with business succession. And then we got a few questions and just we're going to moderate a nice discussion here. So Gary, I'll let you go ahead and get started here. That mic should be on.
Gary Sterling, I'm an instructor at the School of Business here at BBU, and also the director of the Lamberti Center for Rural Entrepreneurship here in town and associated with the university. So my background is mostly in the corporate world, and also I had my own medical device business, and worked for a company called Medtronic for many years, and then from there in 2010 founded a company out of UCLA with a cardiologist, and we worked through the medical device development process and FDA clearance, and sold the company in 2016, and since 2019 I've been here and helping out with things. And how did I get from Los Angeles to here? Well, my daughter was a professor here at BBU for about 10 years, and we came to spend more time with she here. So with that, I'll pass it on to Kristen.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Kirsten Case-Fuller. I'm the regional director with the North Central Iowa Small Business Development Center. So our main office is out of Fort Dodge. I serve a 12-county area, one of which is Vista. So this is one of the counties that I serve, and I've been in this role for about 6 months now. And actually, I started my business counseling with clients and small businesses here. So it's got a special place in my heart and with my time with SBDC because I received a really warm welcome by community partners and from the business community itself. I am a transplant to Iowa, so I moved from Omaha about a year ago to Fort Dodge, and my background is pretty diverse. So I've worked in higher ed, I've run a nonprofit, I've worked in economic development, city government, and at a public utility. So why would I be good for this role is because I bring all of that experience from different industries into this role because we work with small businesses that are in all of the different industries that you can imagine. I love finding resources and solving problems, which is really what I do on a daily basis. So we provide no-cost, confidential, customized, and sometimes bilingual business coaching to small businesses from an idea through succession planning. So that looks different depending on the business and what their needs are, but we can meet one time or every week for an infinite amount of time based off of that organization's needs. So thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Duane Johnson, and I am a native of Central Iowa. Work at Iowa State University Extension right there on campus, actually in the research park just on the south side of Ames. Have a long career in corporate world in downtown Des Moines. Also owned and operated a couple small businesses, and moved to Iowa State University about 7 years ago. In recent years, we've been hearing more and more about the need for business succession plans for small businesses, and so decided to learn more about that subject and became certified in exit planning, as they term it, and continuing now to just try to help small businesses as much as we can.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nieland. I work with Duane just right across the hall. Well, when we're on campus anyway, we both work out in the world as well. You'll see, I'm not going to touch on much. He just said, I pretty much do everything he said as well. My personal background, though, I do actually currently own about 3 businesses. We're looking at a couple more on the side. Have transitioned a couple of businesses. One pretty successfully, but my ACPA told me I left a lot of money on the table. So my goal is to help people not do that. It does take too long to explain exactly what we did wrong. And those of you that are in business, you realize you usually learn from what you did wrong as opposed to what you did right. So we'll get into some of that. But if you get a chance to take a look, this is kind of what we do. It's a lot of what SPDC does as well, and we actually interact with them quite a bit. And kind of we steal personnel back and forth every once in a while as well. But again, hopefully we're able to give you some tidbits that if you're thinking about transition, or if you help somebody that transitions, because as Duane and Kurt said, there's a lot of people out there that have the snow on the roof like I do and are looking at getting out. So hopefully we need to grow that next crop of people that are going to take over.
Right, very good. I appreciate the introductions, and as we can tell, we got a lot of experience at the table today, so we're going to take full advantage of them while we have them in town. And we'll have a little bit of time at the end to have a little question answer from the audience as well, so save your questions for the end if you got anything specific. But I'm going to go ahead and kick things off, and Dan, I'm going to start with you at the end of the table. I'll kind of go reverse order. The simple question is, why is business succession important?
Oh, just having a plan. Like we talked about, maximizing. And one thing that when we went through the exit planning advisory program is maximize value now. The last thing you want to do is plan for selling a business when it's time to sell that actual business. You're going to leave money on the table. And after what we went through with selling one of our businesses, that went pretty well. But then I started thinking about business value day one. I know I'm getting ahead to one of the next questions, but it's extremely important for your own personal life, for your business life, for your life with your spouse or significant other. I mean, when we sold a horse boarding facility. It was one of the businesses, biggest in Iowa at the time. We took care of 120 horses a day. My wife was left with a giant hole inside of her when we sold it. That is the last thing I expected. So to have that not only financial outlook, but also that personal outlook. What's your next step? What are you going to do next? Are you going to start another business? Are you going to retire? Are you going to float around the Caribbean for months at a time? But the short answer to your question is to have a plan makes all the difference, as opposed to having to pull the trigger at the last minute.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to that other than just when Dan's talking about planning, what we've learned is most people wait until they are ready to sell before they really get serious about it. And while that can work out, it often will work out much to your advantage if you start planning 2 to 3 years in advance. And I think we're going to get more into that as we go. But just planning ahead is key, as Dan said.
I think I'll just add that, when you're starting a business, you should have the end in mind, even if that's an ever-changing goal line. So knowing what it is that you're working towards, so is this a family business that you want to pass down to generation? Is this a hobby business? Is this your livelihood? And knowing what you're trying to accomplish through that business is really important. And we'll probably get into this a little bit later too, but if you're thinking about the end from the beginning, and you're checking in with that throughout the life of your business, then you're also thinking about how you're setting up operations, how you're taking care of your finances and your books and all of the things that make a vibrant, healthy business. You're always thinking about that with that end in mind. I think we'll get into kind of pitfalls or challenges that come up, and some of that is because people aren't doing that. You get excited, you're going to start this thing, you jump in, and you're just kind of, then you're looking at the tree and you've forgotten the forest around you.
Yeah, I agree with all of them. Good points. I think, the things I see that some businesses don't focus on as they're thinking of transition or retiring or finding somebody to acquire that business is that they're starting to wind down. What they should be focusing on are ways to increase the value of that business. And focus on profitability, focus on revenue, focus on identifying those key markets or new markets that can help drive profitability and new revenue opportunities. And kind of put your foot on the accelerator, not put it neutral. So all those things can drive valuation increases, including finding ways to document your operations as well as you can so that it makes it very easy for someone to come in and create a plan to take over that business and move forward. So operational efficiency, profits, and revenue are the keys to driving valuation. And so that's where I focus in preparing to sell business.
Very good. Yeah, all really good information. And you get caught up in the day-to-day of operating a business, especially if you're doing it at a high level, right? You kind of lose the grip mentally of someday I'm probably going to have to transition out of this. So kind of leads me to my next question. And Kirsten, I'll lead off this question with you is, if you're in the midst of a business, things are going really, really well, when should a person really start thinking about that transition plan in the midst of high success of the business?
I kind of go back to what I was saying before. I think it should always be on your mind, and part of your strategy year to year is where are we going with this and what's on the horizon and how are we preparing for that. I think you touched on a lot of those action items that are really helping to set you up for success, not only as a business, but when the time comes to transition, no matter what option you choose. And so I will say that most of the time when I am talking to a business that is thinking about it, it's when they're ready to turn the key and walk away. They're done for whatever reason, and they have not sought out any support or resources. They haven't thought about it. There's not a plan. And then we're kind of unraveling a tangle of stuff, right? Because they haven't been managing the financial side with an end in mind. They don't have any operational plans sort of documented or thought through. They might be carrying around a lot of institutional knowledge in their noggin, and then, what do you do with that? So I would say that I kind of go back again to my original thing, is that I think it should always be on our minds. It doesn't mean that you start a business and you're like, okay, I'm going to close it in 5 years or I'm going to sell it. Maybe that is your goal, though. Maybe what your business is something that is with the intent of growing it to sell it within a certain period of time. That space is obviously very actively thinking about that, but I think everybody should have that in mind. We would really like to catch people well before they would even be thinking about what their exit plan is, so that they can be working on those things, they can get their ducks in a row, and things are easier. We might talk about some businesses are really hard to transition. The family doesn't want it, it's hard to sell, maybe the location is challenging. So it gives us more time to think about unique, creative, innovative strategies to find somebody.
Yeah, this is, I guess, just confirming some of what we just heard. First, beginning with the end in mind. When you start a small business, I think one of the key things that can be done is to make sure in your absence the business can still run. So whether that's, if you're an owner-operator and you have no employees, maybe that's just documenting everything. So that if something happens, if you're away for whatever reason, somebody can step in and take that over, or a potential buyer can take it over. And if you do have employees, have at least one key employee who you have trained along the way who can handle the management responsibilities in your absence. I think no matter when the transition occurs, that will position you better. And I'm making up statistics here. I'm not really making them up, but I'm trying to remember. There is a statistic out there that I think it's close to half of business transitions occur unexpectedly, not necessarily planned. So being ready at all times for that transition is important.
I just wanted to share just a quick story. So I have a Main Street business that I'm working with. The individual opened their shop 5 years ago. work there full time, and they recently chose to transition to an outside job with a company. And so they've been, while it's still their business, they're doing the things now through this experience to set things up for whatever's next, whatever comes next. So the operational, really getting operations in place, making sure that there's really clear operational policies and procedures for employees, that there's cross-training of the team so that they can operate without him there every day. And that's ideal. So it may be that you're transitioning out of business, it may be that you're completely, or that you're just transitioning where that's not your whole life. So I think that really speaks to the importance of it, and how it's applicable along the journey, depending on what your pathway is.
Just a couple of thoughts regarding that, and you asked about timing for that. I think certainly it's never too early to plan for succession, or as Kirsten says, think in terms of your exit plan. But certainly 3 to 5 years. A strategic plan, generally you think in terms of blocks of time, and selling a business is typically a strategic direction and something you want to prepare for. So a 3 to 5 year plan you could specifically lay out is something that a lot of financial people, bankers, insurance people can work with. And so when you're thinking in terms of, like, we're getting into the team a little later, but certainly having that 3 to 5 year projection as to what you want to do, setting your goals, your objectives, creating your milestones you want to complete, and you know, all the things you would normally do in creating a strategic plan generally fit within that 3 to 5 year block of time. So even though you want to start thinking about it early, if you can give yourself a 3 to 5 year window, that will give you time to effectively work on a strategic plan to sell your business.
Okay, anything to add, Dan? That's good. Yeah, all good points there, and very valuable information. We do have a number of bankers in the room here representing our group too that I know are very good and knowledgeable in that 3 to 5 year plan. And you know, 3 to 5 years, that could be a long time. It can't be, depending on what's going on, but it sounds like a lot. So if somebody's looking at maybe transitioning seriously in a couple of years, what recommendations or advice would you give somebody on whether they would list their business for sale publicly versus maybe making that a confidential or maybe more behind the scenes type of deal? Because what they don't want to potentially do is affect their business, right, and sales. And people are like, well, they're closing. And you know, so what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's looking at probably wanting to transition out in 2 to 3 years, but also not wanting to make it a big publicity stunt? You know what I mean?
To some degree, it is very much a personal preference. Some people are going to very much be, I don't want anyone else knowing my business, and it's more of a personal matter. On a business level, I think you can imagine if you feel that it is a good decision to make it public and you're comfortable making it public, that does open up your potential buyer market a little bit more. There are situations where competition will make a difference. For example, maybe a contractor who's heavily involved in projects on a day-to-day basis. His potential buyers find out, his potential customers find out that he's selling his business. They may think twice about hiring that person because they don't know who's going to be coming in to finish their job and if that person will be as reliable. So I think it's a personal decision along with a business decision, and there's really no right or wrong answer.
I'm just going to add to that, depending on your industry, that runway might be really important because you might have to get creative about how you're going to find the next leader of that business, who's going to take it over. So I'll use a pharmacy or a vet clinic, for example. There may or may not be somebody in that community who has the background, the training, the skill set, the desire to take over that business. And so how are you going to find that person? And you might need that runway so that you could have those strategic partnerships with the schools and with students that are coming out. And maybe they're coming on board and they're being mentored with that type of a plan in place to eventually take over the business. So I think that's an important component too, is, what is the industry, what is the market, how likely is it that you could quickly, easily find somebody? And if that's a no, then you're going to need to get creative about what that's going to look like.
Kind of thinking through that, and confidentially or non-confidentially, make it public. What resources, maybe as we're going through that process and just internalizing some of that stuff, do your organizations provide that, maybe anybody sitting out in the room here today or a banker, could recommend your organizations ultimately could provide? Maybe, Dan, I'll go back down to the end of the table there. You might want to start off with Iowa State Extension and the university on what resources.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm guessing anybody that's thinking about transitioning that's in this room or that's helping somebody do it is, the first question is, what's my business worth? They want to know what they're going to do, or at least what's the range of what I can walk out of this thing with. So that's kind of the reason I bring that up is we can do, and again, it all depends on how crazy you want us to get. We can do a rough valuation for nothing, basically, but if we're going to dig into it, we're going to help grow your business and all that stuff. As with anything, the more, again, I see how crazy we get, or the more we need to do, we start layering on some costs. That said, it's going to be, well, maybe not free like SBDC, but it's going to be way cheaper than outside consultants as well. But we can provide valuations. We can come in and, for lack of a better term, tear your business apart on paper. Operationally, where are you? Where can you grow? Suppliers, where can you maybe, I shouldn't say squeeze more money out of your suppliers. Where can you save? How do you make your business look the absolute best it can based on that timeline? Is it 3 to 5 years? Is it 2 years? Is it by the end of the year? And again, it just kind of depends on what you need. We have enough. The good thing about being part of Iowa State is, depending on what that business is, we've probably, especially in ag or in your small towns, we've got somebody on the staff or on faculty or something that has lived it, that talks about it. We represent the business side, the valuation side. So kind of almost, like Kirsten said initially, what they do as well is from beginning to end. What do you need? But a lot of people don't reach out. Again, like we said, until it's too late. How much is my business worth? I have no idea. So I guess we can start with that, and we can build accordingly. Matter of fact, we're doing that in a small town in southwest Iowa next week, soon, to do that very thing. You just don't know what you don't know until you start digging into it.
Yeah, I was just going to add that with help of the Exit Planning Institute, we've actually have developed a program that kind of steps us through a lot of the things Dan was talking about. But in addition to that, it was mentioned earlier, the personal side of it. Are you personally ready to exit the business? What's your financial situation? What can you get out of the business, and where will that leave you financially, assuming you're retiring? Does that leave you where you want to be? As you probably know, small business owners sometimes overestimate the value of their business, and how does that fit into the retirement plan? And so it's sort of a tried and true program to walk through the process from beginning to end.
There's a lot of resources out there actually, and I think Iowa State Resource is a great resource. The Iowa Lakes Corridor, I think, is a good place to consider, even depending on your city situation. In Storm Lake, we've got people citywide to help out with that situation in terms of directing you to where there are resources to help. Things like valuation are tricky, and a lot of times when you're trying to get a value of your company, there are several models to do that, and then oftentimes you'll get kind of a low, medium, and high estimate of where you might land. But obviously, it's between you and negotiating with a motivated buyer as to what that price will actually be. And then there are other things. If you're working on a succession plan, and I saw a statistic that said of all the businesses that are listed only 1 in 5 actually gets sold.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you consider that, you've got to make yourself attractive, and you've got to get yourself out there as to, depending on the industry. And when I sold my company, they came to us, which is great. But that rarely happens, I think, depending on the industry. But there are online resources also to look at as far as the steps to prepare yourself, get ready to sell your business. Business brokers can sometimes be very helpful, although they'll charge you 10 to 15%, on the sale of that business. So a lot of resources. I think going along with what my colleagues have said here, the key is preparing early as possible to make that happen. And we have a program that we developed here in partnership with the Islands Quarter called bizbaton.org, and it's a website that you can go to, bizbaton.org, bizbaton.org, and it's a simple way of just getting yourself out there, and it's confidential. So if you were a business and you wanted to fill out the profile, it's almost like a dating site. It's like matching up the right kind of buyer opportunities with those who want to be bought. And so that's the vision of the site. That we're just kind of rolling it out, launching it. But the way that works is if you want to go to that website and fill that out, we will then help you with getting some exposure to those who are interested in potentially buying a business. So that's one alternative, but looking at the different resources out there. I know Ohio State has great resources. SBDC has great resources. The Advanced Iowa program is also a very good resource for succession planning and employee ownership type of options, which are also out there. So the quiver is full as far as opportunities. I think if you reach out to some of the key economic development people in your region who can help answer some of those questions.
So, I mentioned that we provide confidential, no cost, customized business coaching. We work with sellers and buyers, so we can work with both sides of that coin. We don't provide legal advice. We can't do a certified valuation. We could do an uncertified one with the different methods that he was talking about. One of the things that I think that we provide value with in the process is helping to cut through some of the clutter and sort of figure out steps and what needs to be figured out, what resources or experts need to be pulled in, and also serving as a sounding board. So, running your own business can be a lonely position. You don't always have somebody that you can process with, and we can do that too. And so, some days I feel like a little bit more of a therapist, and other days we're kind of into the technical side. So I think that some takeaways on resources is, again, we're here to support businesses with opportunities and challenges throughout the life cycle of the business. But we're not going to tell you what to do. We're going to give you the best information possible so that you can make informed decisions moving forward. And then where we do not know the answer or we are not experts, then we will connect you with resources. And we're going to connect you with those additional resources anyway. Cutting through the clutter, if you've done a search for X, Y, and Z, you know that there's 5 million things that pop up. Half of them you're not sure if it's a legitimate source. So we want to make that easier for you too. And so those are some of the things that we can do for not only the folks that are looking to transition from their business, regardless of what choice they make, whether it's staying within the family, maybe a partner is buying it out, or they're selling it. But we can also work with the person who's looking to purchase. It would not be the same person, so we would have 2 different SBDC people work on that.
One of the things we may still talk about is who you should get on your team when you go into this process. And one of the things you definitely want on your team is someone who's a tax expert. I don't believe that's any of us here, but you definitely, in selling a business, need someone who's going to be able to help you complete the transaction in the most advantageous manner from a tax standpoint.
Yeah, there are experts in business structures who can structure that deal for them, whether it's a structured payout over time or whether it's taking large lump sum, how they do that. That's not in our expertise. Maybe some people I always take my hand up, but certainly a lot of CPAs can help advise in those particular areas.
So my next question would be, as we're trying to get the most value of our business, and maybe things aren't going really well, but we want to sell. What are ways or strategies that we can encourage? When cash flow isn't good, like what are some steps that we can take as a business to increase that cash flow to make it as appetizing for a potential buyer?
Yeah, if you're not generating cash flow, you've got some issues, and then also it depends on your urgency in wanting to sell. So if you have time, like I said earlier, to build a plan and to start working on focusing on profitable products, services, or whatever you're offering, then that's the optimal way to do it. And we've used mentors to help with people, to advise people in some of those areas. We've talked about having team members that can do that, but certainly if you're selling products, the companies that sell you those products, those vendors, they are great strategic partners you can involve with your business to help find ways, creative ways to help manage inventory, and which can help cash flow, and your banker. There's ways of borrowing money to where you don't have to make people borrow to you, but they can help you as far as factoring some inventory items when you're selling those, so you're not affecting cash flow as much. So there are many creative ways to do that. It just depends on how much time you have. If you're focused on increasing the value of your business so that you can get a higher price. So, but coming up with that plan, looking at ways to increase revenue through whatever means your business works in your business, and improving profitability with those items, because those are two really important pieces in bumping up your valuation for sale. So I hate to say, don't know, but it really does depend on your industry. And identifying those experts who can help you drive sales and profitability there.
So this speaks to the having your house in order. Some companies are able to operate in a more sophisticated way with better tools and resources available to them. Not all businesses do. I typically am working with businesses that don't have that. And so one of the challenges that I see is that people don't understand the data that they have. One, they may not be tracking information well. So that we have data to look at, but they're also not sure how to use that data to help them understand what's going on with their business. Where are they losing money, what's not profitable and what is, so that they can identify what some of those opportunities are, or something that needs to be cut out because it's really harming the business. So for us, it's almost like an archaeological dig. We kind of have to understand what's going on. It's like going into the ER and kind of checking vitals and trying to understand what's happening. What facts do we have, and if we don't have that information, we kind of have to take a couple steps back to figure out, get things in order. So I kind of, I guess that would be my theme, is have your house in order. They don't have to be sophisticated tools that you use, but make sure that you have a method that is going to help you run your business, so that you can use information about your business to make business decisions in the future.
I will jump in real quick on that, because that's a great point. But a lot of times, I mean, I'm just as guilty of this as everybody else. When you own a business, you don't want to ask for help. If it's not going the right direction, the time to ask for help is way over here, not at the end, like, crap, now what? So don't be too proud to reach out. I mean, we mentioned a ton of the resources, whether it be the people at this table. There are a ton of resources across the state. You had mentioned UNI's program. They do an excellent job as well. But yeah, you gotta get the pride in check and just ask, because there's help out there.
When it comes to business success, I'd like for each one of you just to leave a parting piece of advice, or the number one thing that you think is the most important thing when looking to transition a business. And I'm just going to start right here with Gary. We'll just kind of work that way.
Well, depending on the urgency to sell your business, I think it's the planning process, and you'll probably hear that from all of us. But developing, I look at any kind of major event like transitioning your business or selling it as a major strategic event, and that is going through the basic planning process of getting you there. And those disciplines to do that are easily established. It can help you in your business. It helps you understand your business better. It helps you identify who potential buyers could be, what they might look like, and it will help you achieve those milestones that will best position your business for an attractive sell. And so getting somebody to help you walk through that process is not expensive, and it's an eye-opening process for any business. If you have the time to do that, I say that you'd like to have like a 3 to 5 year window to do that. If time is up and there's illness, or there's you have to get out, or there's all those things going on, then surround yourself with a team. We kind of hinted at that, but find a good CPA, find a good lawyer, any industry experts that can help you with that, can help give you advice, and anything you can do as a team is better than generally than you do it individually. So just a couple thoughts.
I'm sure you could guess what I was going to say. Have your house in order, have the end in mind. You've put a lot of time and effort and heart and soul and resources into starting a business and running a business. And so it does not have to be alone. There are so many resources available. I would emphasize that while succession planning can feel like this far off horizon thing, that's not something you need to think about today. Anything could happen to any one of us right now. And we can't assume that our partners in the business or our significant others or our family members know what we want to have happen. We also owe it to them to make sure that there are things in place, agreements or whatever the situation may be, of what happens. If something happens to me, what happens to my business? How does it continue to operate? If it's a temporary situation, or what happens to the business if I'm no longer here to run the business, right? And I think it's been mentioned before, the people that step into those situations they don't always have the same care, love, attachment to that business. They may not understand the operations, and it's also a big burden on them. And so sometimes it's unfortunately an emergency that makes this conversation happen. And so out of fairness for those around you that you care about and those that you work with in your business, you owe it to yourself and to them to think about, talk about, and plan for this. And please use the resources that are available. That's what we're here for.
I'm going to go a slightly different direction, and this arguably may not be the single most important thing, but it's something we really haven't touched on much today, and I do think it's important, and that's the personal aspect. If we are assuming that the transition is into retirement, which we often assume that is not obviously always the case. It may be transitioning to a 9-to-5 job, it might be to another business, or so on and so on. But if it is the transition to retirement, we recommend having a plan personally for how you're going to spend your time. Small business owners are used to working many hours typically. They're very invested in that business. It's a lot of their identity is wrapped up in that business. And if you walk away from that, how are you going to spend your time? What's going to be your identity? And having a written plan and really thinking it through in advance can be a big help.
I'm going to go completely different for the reasons that all three of them have mentioned. We need to, on the flip side, start doing what you can to mentor, prepare the next batch of entrepreneurs. Because as you sell, I mean, if it's 10, 15 years down the line, or if it's 2 years down the line, if we've done our job as bringing up that next batch of entrepreneurs, there's going to be a ton of opportunity for them. And it's probably going to be, and I hate to say it, but a lot of fire sales coming down the road because people are going to get out. One of the businesses we bought for, it was 10% of what it was worth. And I felt kind of bad, but as in business, you do what you can. Let's look at that, use that as a cautionary tale to, let's start mentoring. Find those people in your business that might be younger, that might have that right mix to run your business. Or just kind of be thinking of that as we move forward.
Awesome, all great tips. And so we'll go ahead, we got a few minutes here for questions. Does anybody in the group have anything that they would like to ask the panel? Yeah.
So how do we, as business leaders, mayors, people that own businesses, or bankers, get this information to people to know that there's help out there? There's all kinds of entrepreneurs. You guys know that. I mean, they come to you every day.
That's $1 million question. I serve 12 counties, and so one of my strategies is to try to be out physically in person in the counties, building relationships with local government, with economic developers, chambers, so that they know that we're there, we're a resource. Word of mouth is a great referral source. Also our lenders, they send folks to us because they show up and they want a loan, they don't have a business plan, and they have no financial projections, right? So they say, okay, go over here. But it is a challenge. It's very difficult to try to get out to everybody. So I think that those relationships with key stakeholders is really important, but it does require at some point that a business owner is reaching out to somebody, and then hopefully that person's informed enough about some of the basic resources. But it is a challenge for all of us.
Has to be done locally, and I think through the universities, through the chambers of commerce, we all need to be upping that message. And if you look at what's happened in the last couple of years, actually the last 4 or 5 years, succession planning has become a very, very hot topic. So I'm hearing at a lot of conferences I'm going to, and through business associations that I'm involved with, and so I think it is starting to happen, starting to flow. But I point to people like Iowa Lakes Corridor, I know Lee Detfield with the city of Storm Lake is back there, other city organizations they need to have these businesses stay in place. Small towns, you cannot lose these businesses. Towns cannot thrive without them. So these organizations need to step up and get that out. And there's so many social media opportunities as far as marketing services and those kind of things. But I think what your message is hopefully for the economic development people in the room to hear that's got to get out. And I take that on as our university needs to do that as well. So thank you for that. It's a good prompt for us to do more.
As you may or may not know, Iowa State University Extension and Outreach is involved in anything and everything, really. I'm sure there's a lot of things that they're involved in that I don't even know about that I've worked for 6 years. So I'm not surprised and we hear from people that were hard to find and that they didn't know about us. We have this year begun to try to do more outreach by doing things like this. We've got some things scheduled in Central Iowa. Again, it is a difficult question to answer other than we are at this time a fairly small unit. We've got just 5 employees. So there's only so much we can do, but we are trying to do our best to get the word out at least here and there.
People think of, extension is food, fairs, and if there's something wrong with your tree, you bring it in and 4-H. Yeah, and 4-H. But that's kind of, we've been quietly in the background doing our thing, so now we're just trying to Duane's point, trying to not be so quiet about it. So, if we can help, just let us know as well.
On behalf of my staff, Joanne and Alyssa and Trevor, I just want to thank you all for attending today. And City of Storm Lake, thanks for hosting us in town today. And BB, thanks for being here as well. Our panel, thank you very much, Dan and Kirsten and Duane and Gary, thank you.